Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the SLDC Board of Directors meeting being held October 17th, 2024 at 8:01 a.m. I would like to call the meeting to order. And I have a roll call, please.
Director Arnold. Director Gilbert.
Here.
Director McBride.
Here.
Director Sean Spencer.
Present.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Alderwoman Kara Spencer.
Present.
Director Reed.
Here.
And Chair Richardson.
Present. We have a quorum. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the September 19, 2024 regular scheduled board meeting that was held via Zoom. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move, Sean Spencer.
Second, McBride.
Have a roll call vote, please.
Director Gilbert.
Aye.
Director McBride.
Aye.
Director Sean Spencer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Kara Spencer.
Present.
Director Reed.
Aye.
And Chair Richardson.
Aye. With the majority present voting aye, the motion passes to approve the minutes from the September 19, 2024 regular scheduled board meeting. The first item on the agenda is resolution number 24 SLDC 970, adopting a short list for minority and women-owned business enterprise certification consultants to provide supplemental certification capacity. Pass it over to our Senior Vice President of Economic Empowerment, Ms. Stacy Fowler.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Richardson, and good morning, board members. The resolution 24 SLC 3970 that you have before you is for the adoption of a short list for minority and women-owned business enterprises for certification consultants to provide supplemental capacity services to our certified STL team. We did follow the proper process to procure. These are, shall we say, get their qualifications because it was an RFP. And we had 5 companies respond to our RFQ. And we decided that we wanted to keep all 5 companies on our short list. We like what they presented. We like what they showed us. That way, no matter what happens with the certification team, we are prepared to address the applications. I will tell you, since September 3rd to September 30th, we got about 65 applications. 49 of them were renewals, which were those companies that were already on our list that just needed to renew. We had 2 companies that asked for expansion, and then we had 14 companies ask for new applications. Of the 14, as you know, we're still in partnership with St. Louis Lambert Airport. They are working on the backlog while we're also working on new applications. So of the 14, I think 12 of them belong to them and 2 belong to us. So the team is working. We're getting maybe 1 to 2 applications a day. I will tell you the majority of the applications right now are renewals because it's just that time and season for the current. We have about 986 firms sitting on our directory today. And of that, those, it's time, as the year goes out, they renew at different times. So most of those are renewals to keep the current companies that we have. So the short list consists of Genuality B2B, Mid-States Minority Suppliers Development Council, Porter Brown and Associates, C3 Business Consultants LLC, and Efficacy Consulting and Development. So what we're asking for the board to do is just to approve our short list today so that they know that we have them on a short list. And when we find ourselves in a situation where we need to go into contract with those individuals, of course, we will come back to this board for that to happen. But we would just like to have the short list available. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Any questions from the directors as it relates to this resolution? Director Spencer, Sean Spencer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ms. Fowler, can you give us just an update on how the transition is going and maybe some background on why you want to go more towards consultants versus maybe building up the existing team, for the future? Because obviously we're taking the full role on over some time.
Oh, so let me say this to you. We are building the team. I'm interviewing as we speak today. So there will be a 6-person certification team. The consultants are just there to help us if we get overwhelmed. We're not moving 2 consultants. I just kind of want them in my back pocket just in case I need them. Not so much as so I won't have to be trying to procure them when I really need them versus them just being available if that should be the issue. And so with the process of moving over, as we have said in the past, we want to make sure that we grow this program. We want to enhance kind of what we're doing around our economic justice action plan and open up our certification process. Because I think in our community, people are kind of narrow-minded. They only see certification around construction. And we just know that there is a huge supplier diversity opportunity out there for us. And we're beginning to build those connections with the stakeholders in the community around our anchor institutions. Actually, we're getting ready to do our first certification summit with the zoo. So we're beginning to build these type of opportunities with these larger institutions because they have all kind of opportunities. Because even on our certification list, we have more than construction people on there. But, as SLDC is trying to be better and be transparent, we're trying to find those opportunities for those other people that are sitting on the list that might kind of get left in the dirt, which is really our professional services and those other services beyond just construction. So we're expanding the program. And, honestly, the Lambert was not going to do that. They were only going to do the certification for MBE and WBE. And so we're still working with them. They're still going to be our partners. We're just changing how we're processing and what we're doing in the space for it. Member Director Spencer.
Yeah, that's really some good context for us to have. And would it be fair to say that using consultants in this capacity is really backstopping some of the issues that you saw at the airport, and this gives you more of an opportunity to just stay on top of it so we don't see that backlog that we found at the airport?
So I will say yes, because when they start losing staff, they should have, they had consultants, I think, in their back pocket. They should have started assigning those files so we wouldn't be so far in the hole behind with files. And I don't want us to get there. I want us to be able to get through the process. And I just want it to be there. Should we need it, we will come back to this board. You will know what's going on. But at this point, we're fine. It's just, I'm being proactive, shall I say.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your question, Director Spencer. Alderwoman Kara Spencer.
Thank you, Neil. I believe Director Gilbert was before me, but I'm happy to just kind of jump in here. I guess I have a level of discomfort with this whole program moving over from the airport. I'm hearing more and more from contractors that that there's a lot of concerns here. I feel like SLDC has so many consultants going on in and out the door. I can't keep track of them. So I just, I'm not very comfortable with this proposal here. And so I just want to caution us, the amount of consultants that SLDC apparently has right now is just, it's too much for me to keep track of at this point. And, I would rather see us look for, be part of a regional solution for certification. I think moving this specifically to SLDC is causing some distress among our contractor community. And I just don't think it's the right move for us right now. So I'm cautioning us on this. I just think that this is, the amount of concerns I'm hearing from the community are quite significant.
Thank you, Alderwoman Spencer, for your comments. SLDC has just started to begin the process beginning in September. So we haven't had the opportunity to address every concern, but any concern that should be raised up, please feel free to share that information with myself or Ms. Stacy Fowler. We are taking a regional approach to this. This is not just a city program. This is across the entire MSA. Historically, this program was with SLDC, but due to other challenges, it was moved out to the airport. And what we see is an opportunity in partnership with St. Louis Economic Development Partnership, as well as the county and other areas within the MSA. We've had conversations with those municipalities, with those localities around this effort and how we can improve. We also are, again, looking to bring some of those wraparound services to these small businesses and nonprofits through our Northside Economic Empowerment Center. Stacy has, even before we've taken on the program officially, we've held on a weekly basis, digging through the weeds through certification to provide that support to women and minority-owned business enterprises. We have a computer lab at our center that's open and available for individuals to complete the certification process. If they have questions, those questions can be answered directly by an individual on our staff. We will not complete the application for them, but if they have questions about the application, we will be present to do so. The airport has some challenges with capacity around being able to do that. And then also, as we know, just as flyers across the country here, going to the airport, there's some challenges with parking. So having availability for staff to provide that additional support to those women and minority-owned businesses is our goal, while also being able to bring on some of our significant suppliers from anchor institutions. We've been connected with the Anchor Action Network and bringing in some of their institutions such as, WashU, SLU, BJC, as they have opportunities to support these women and minority-owned businesses. They're looking to put on summits and conferences to share some of those opportunities. So it's not about just limiting the opportunities for these businesses. It's being able to expand those resources and the technical assistance that we can provide. As Stacy mentioned, these consultants are not being procured today. This is really being able to ensure that we can address those things and be very nimble as an organization to provide that support. So as we bring any consultant back, as Stacy mentioned, it will be about a very specific task and being able to answer any questions from the directors at the time in which we're able to bring those consultants back. So
Thanks.
yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Neil. I mean, is the airport still doing this work for St. Louis County? Why aren't we then, having?
No, they're not. No.
The airport's no longer doing this work at all.
Yeah, the work that they're completing is the backlog that's currently in the system that was there before June of this year, and they're finishing that backlog. And so they are conducting the DBE, which is the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, as well as the concession work that's all funded through the FAA. The funding for the regional WMBE was a shared partnership between SLDC and SLEDP of the county. And so being able to now really be able to focus on providing those holistic services to the women and minority-owned businesses is our goal here, and to ensure that they're getting the direct support they need.
Is there a reason why we didn't engage with the airport and the folks that had that experience, having done this for, many, many years at this point, to do any overflow at this point?
Yeah, we did. Actually, we did. So we provided through our ARPA funding 2 additional staff members from SLDC to provide them with capacity. And what they found is that, it's just too much for them to handle at this current moment. And so in order for us to, again, be able to not just provide the certification is one piece to being able to connect these entities with business opportunities. We've seen it as a way to provide greater capacity. So we did engage with the airport. We provided additional staff for them over the last year. And Stacy, maybe you can speak directly to the work that Lennox had done with the airport through the funding that was provided by SLDC.
Yes. Lennox Lamb got hired back in 2022 and had been there for it's coming up on 2 years, working with the airport. And actually, we learned a lot, which has helped us with the process to see where the gaps were, to help us identify how we could move forward and do better. And he is our certification manager right now, helping us with this process. So he's worked with them for 2 years. So that is, and in the transition period, we did training with them. So it's not like institutional knowledge has been lost, and it's not like the team has not been trained and prepared to understand how to do this process. And I'm sorry that there are still some folks out there that are kind of in the backlog, which is maybe some of the complaints and issues that you might be hearing, which we don't know all of those individuals. And please share that information with us, because then if they're in the portal or in the pipeline with the airport, we can begin to have conversations with them to figure out where they are. You're muted.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I still have, a level of discomfort here. And, I mean, when I have the volume of folks reaching out, I'll be happy to share those, Stacy, if people feel comfortable. But the reality that I'm experiencing is that there's a level of discomfort with moving this over to SLDC. And so I'm going to be a no vote today.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the directors? Okay, hearing none, I would like to entertain a motion to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 970.
Mark Hubbard.
Second, Gilbert.
With a motion and a second, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gilbert,
Aye.
Director McBride,
Aye.
Director Sean Spencer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Karen Spencer,
No.
Director Reed,
Aye.
and Chair Richardson.
Aye. With the majority present voting aye, the motion passes to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 970. The next item on the agenda is resolution number 24 SLDC 971, authorizing execution of an agreement between SLDC and Crossroads Reprographics, Inc. for services in support of a capacity building program for minority contractors. I'd like to pass it over to our compliance director for WMBE, Ms. Marla Roach, and Stacy Fowler.
Good morning, board. I'm happy to be before you today. My name is Marla Roach, Compliance Manager of SLDC. This resolution that we're bringing before you today is the procurement that we did for the plant room for SLDC. And we would like to bring this resolution to enter into an agreement with Crossroads Reprographic Incorporated in the amount of $65,940 for the period of January 1st, 2025 to December 31st of 2025, with SLDC having an option to extend this agreement up to 1 year. This is to provide services to support the SLDC plan room, a capacity building program for the minority contractor. This plan room is in place because of Ordinance 70767, forgive me this morning, reading fast this morning, for a clearinghouse. And we've been able to deal with this plan room with this particular vendor for the last 8 years. We did have 2 companies that came in for procurement, and after the selection committee, we decided to go with Crossroads at this time. So if I have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them.
Yeah. Stacy, do you want to provide some context on the relationship with Crossroads over the years, the services they provide through the plan room, and how the services they provide prepare these contractors for these opportunities and provide support to the compliance team?
Yes. Can you hear that noisy background? I'm sorry, they're fixing the
No,
roof.
we cannot. We can just hear you, Stacy.
You can just hear me. Wonderful. Okay, here goes. Yes. So Crossroad Reprographics has actually, I started back in 2018. They actually had the contract for the plan room at that time. We have always procured them appropriately because it comes through our community development block grant dollars, but it's a part of our capacity building program for us to help our minority contractors do a better job of understanding the opportunities on projects that are in the city that are receiving some type of city incentive through tax abatements, TIFs, whatever that looks like. They've normally been doing this by paper and pencil. We've gone to an electronically process of being able to give them the opportunity to be able to bid more. And in this time frame that we've been working with Elmer, we had one location that was south on Jefferson, but now we have two locations. We have a location north and we have a location south. So the north location is actually here at the Northside Economic Empowerment Center. We do all kind of capacity building workshops and opportunities around the plan room to make sure that we're helping our small and minority contractors understand the opportunities. We've expanded this to the point that even VPS now posts their opportunities in our plan room, and they didn't do that a year before. We're really trying to increase the capacity and the opportunities for them in the system, and it doesn't cost them to provide those opportunities in the plan room. We want them to know of everything that's available that they can bid on as a subcontractor. And to increase the capacity, we do something called, we do meet and greets with newly certified MBEs and WBEs. We do conversations with contractor. We have our bidding estimating academy, which is all around the plan room. We've bought bidding estimating software that we have on the laptops for them to do their takeoffs so that they can do more bidding on the projects if they see that they're available. We invite prime contractors to come in, to come in and talk with them about their opportunities through the plan room. So it's just another way for us to help build capacity for our small and minority contractors beyond just construction, because one of the things we want to do as we continue to expand, we want to be able to list those other opportunities, those other professional service opportunities with our anchor institutions in our system now. And we're just beginning to roll that out. So this relationship has evolved over the several years. I know Marla has some numbers to show you the numbers of individuals that have come in every year, and we're constantly growing the process.
Yeah. So with those numbers, I just want to add to that. For the contracts for the last 4 years that we have taken a look at it, was that the projects submitted to the MBEs and WBEs have come up to about 300 over those last 4 years since we've had the plan for when I've been working with it, as well as project notices. It's important to send those notices out to the MBE and WBEs on that list. We've been able to do at least almost 5,000 of those opportunities have been sent directly to them. And then electronic specs was not available until 2022 in our plan room. And now since we've been in electronic specs, we have over 300 contractors that have moved from paper to electronics to be able to work a better situation. And Stacy spoke about how we go to professional services. This year, we have been offering a monthly procurement opportunity with our professional services that would deal with any and all city opportunities within our area, as well with the MSA, because we also have offered some Illinois developers to come in and talk about procurement opportunities from East St. Louis. So we have expanded what we do with our contractors. The plan room helps us because we're not only allowed to post in that situation, but things are sent directly to those MBEs and WBEs via that plan room.
Yeah, thank you, Marla and Stacy, for that great presentation. Again, having the plan room is critically important as a conduit for those businesses to be aware of the projects that are coming through the city and other partnerships, so they can, again, not only get certified, but then also are aware of the opportunities that exist within the region so they can start to build up their capacity as women and minority-owned business enterprises. This is a great program, and I know we've gotten great feedback from many contractors that have participated in it, and now being able to have, more transparency with BPS also putting their projects within the plan room is, again, a great opportunity where, we don't have a lack of knowledge of what's coming from the city. They are aware of what those opportunities are, and they can begin to bid in a very transparent and open manner, but then also be protected from any bid shopping or other challenges that we know have hindered these WMBEs from getting these contracts moving forward. So thank you all again for your hard work. With that, any questions for Marla and or Stacy in regards to this program? Alderwoman Kara Spencer, recognize your hand.
Thanks, Neil. Again, I just don't understand why we have to have this, why this can't be in-house. I'd like to make a request to have a formal list of all the consultants that SLDC has. I just can't seem to wrap my head around just how many consultant agreements we have had over the years and how many we have right now. I think we
Yeah.
should really be considering taking these things in-house, and if we want to be roping them into BPS and having them be streamlined, we really should be doing them ourselves.
Yeah, I understood, Alderwoman Spencer. Let's take a step back. SLDC again is a 501c4 nonprofit organization, and much of our funding that comes, whether it's from the public side through CDBG funding, it's not a recurring allocation that we can understand to say, okay, we're going to have this for the next 5 to 10 years. This is funding that we have to apply for on a annual basis and get allocated from the city. So being able to have somebody on staff that we don't have a funding source guaranteed for the next 5 years is something that creates a challenge for us. But also it allows for us to be more nimble and have, again, work with the latest and cutting edge technology and partners. And that's why we procure this on an annual basis to make sure that we get a chance to evaluate, who is providing the best level of support in a cost effective way that aligns with the funding source that we have available coming through the CDBG funding specifically for this program directly. Any dollars that we receive as a result of SLDC operations, such as our new market tax credit program, any funds that we receive through other operations that we have at SLDC, help support the administrative staff to be able to support those 9 development boards under SLDC umbrella. However, we have other technology and other overhead that comes as part of that administrative cost. And that's when we bring in consultants and other partners to be able to help us through this process to execute and effectuate our ongoing services. So you will see more procurement and more consultants from a technology standpoint, from a capacity standpoint to provide these services to support the ongoing operations, because the funding sources that we have, again, are not always the most consistent. We have to apply for this funding just like anyone else, just like we were just awarded CDBG funding from the latest round through CDA. Again, so SLDC, we have to enter into subrecipient agreements. We have to enter into MOUs. We're not allocated direct funding from the budget. And so I just wanted to be clear that, while SLDC works to service and administer the staff and operations for those 9 development boards to support the city of St. Louis, we're not directly funded by them through the operating budget. But understanding that we manage many of those funds, we have to be accountable and be transparent in that process. And that's what we're aiming to do by taking it before the board and getting those formal approvals. So Alderwoman Kara Spencer, I just want to make sure that, I note that is kind of why we have many different consultants that we bring on board. I know we provided a list of the consultants, the contract amounts, the dates on several different occasions. And we're more than willing to provide that again to you as well.
No, I appreciate it, especially going back in time, Neil. I mean, the funding source for SLDC has been, as you just, described for a very long time here, but it does appear to me that we've really increased the amount of money going out in consultants. And as we've seen a nightmare with one of the SLDC consultants just this summer, having received a cease and desist from this organization, I think it's important that we are extremely judicious about how this organization, is essentially acting as a pass-through. We're talking about city money coming to SLDC and then going to consultants. It's mind-blowing how many of those relationships we have, the nightmares that have been the result of them. And I just have a level of discomfort with continuing along that path. And, without having seen a change in how we're ensuring that these consultants are doing the work we're asking them to do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I just continue to have a level of discomfort with it, and therefore I'm going to be a no vote on.
Understood. And if there's, again, we are aiming to talk through solutions here, right? And not continue to rehash some of the issues about recognizing the issues, but how do we move forward to address the solutions, right? And how to make it better and how we can be more efficient. We have ensured that we provided updates from our consultants, such as Candid, that provides marketing and communications, such as Levy Consulting that provide operations. Within our board meetings and board packets, we provide an overview on a monthly basis to the board of their activities. And that's shared with the board of directors prior, as we also share the board agenda packets. So if you ever have any questions around some of that work, again, we're willing to have that conversation, whether it's in person or directly with me around the operations of the ongoing process at SLDC. I'm always working to make SLDC better, and we're open to suggestions to finding real solutions to the issues. Again, understanding that nothing is perfect, but we are working hard to make sure that we improve our processes every day. So if you or other directors, as your duty, can always ask us questions around how we can improve these processes, and we're always willing to work with the board and others in the community to improve it, which is what we continue to do every day. So, Alderwoman Spencer, I definitely respect your questions and concerns, and I know you have a fiduciary responsibility as the chair of the Budget and Public Employees Committee. And we're always willing to work with you to ensure that SLDC is being as transparent and accountable as possible as we procuring these services. So again, thank you for your feedback.
But Neil, I want to say, I have asked questions. I sent an email to you on September 25th outlining a very long list of questions. From that time, I haven't gotten a response to those questions. They're very reasonable questions. Since I sent that, I have several other questions that I'd like to ask, but I, of course, am anticipating a response to that email first. And so I do have questions on how these consultants, and with all due respect, I haven't gotten the response from you. And on top of that, we meet once a month for 2 hours, and it's often that, we're feeling rushed, that in the interest of time moving along. This conversation here is not on the monthly basis, has not increased my confidence in this organization. If there's meetings outside of that, I'm not privy to them. So, what I'm telling you is that this is not instilling confidence in me, and I'm continuing to hear from the community that they also don't have confidence in this organization and the work that SLDC is doing, and certainly the contracts with consultants. And so, if you would respond to that email, I would be grateful.
You've sent me several emails, Alderwoman Kara Spencer, that I've been very responsive to. The email that you detailed, I gave you an immediate response and also said that I will continue to follow up with you. I've also offered anytime that you call, anytime that you want to schedule a meeting with me, I'm always willing to do that. So if you want to have continuous conversations on a weekly basis about the consultants and the contractors, I'm more than willing to have those conversations with you. And I'm always open to any suggestions and any feedback. We have our doors open every day, Monday through Friday at the Northside Economic Empowerment Center for businesses to come in and answer those questions. I think SLDC, again, has been as transparent as possible since I've started within the organization. We have moved towards being as transparent as possible by even recording and opening up every board meeting, not just the SLDC Board of Directors meeting, but other meetings, and posting them online. That didn't happen before. Our goal is to, again, ensure that we're being as transparent and communicative as possible to the public around these things. And I will not stand for us saying that SLDC and our staff is not willing to have those conversations. We've held over 100, we've been part of over 100 town halls over the last couple of years.
The city
And we've also had over, again, 130 of our meetings recorded and posted online. We've shared information with you. My staff spent the last 2 weeks gathering every board packet and shared those board packets with you since June of 2021 as you requested. We put those things on a shared drive. Our staff has, limited capacity, but we've taken the time out to answer all of the questions that you've asked. I know there are some other questions that you've asked me on September 25th. And again, we've been working to respond to all of those questions that you may have. But at any moment, at any time, you want to have a meeting with me, Alderwoman Spencer, I'm more than willing to have that conversation. Again, I want to be respectful of everyone's time and not really use this as a platform to debate on our personal conversations, but to really keep the matter at hand around the programmatic things apt to this board meeting today.
Okay, this is
So
not, but Chairman, this is not a personal conversation. And what you're saying is you're willing to answer questions, but again, we still have outstanding questions that are over 3 weeks old. And if you're going to say that SLDC is willing to answer questions, you're right, you are very responsive, but that is not the same as answering questions. And I have a serious level and number of outstanding questions for the organization. I don't think it should take 3 weeks to put together board packets. These should be available and easy to put together. And I apologize if that took a long time for your staff to do, but I do have a serious level of questions that remain unanswered and have been unanswered for several weeks. If you want to have a meeting about it, that's one thing, but I do not think these questions are out of line or should take a lot of bandwidth from the staff to put together. They're very reasonable questions and they deserve to have an answer.
Yeah, and we've been very responsive to all of the questions. That wasn't just one email. You sent maybe 10 different emails to me around various questions that I've been very responsive to.
But you
Again,
have questions. Being
again-
responsive and answering the questions are very different things, Neil, and I'm just going to be very clear about that.
That's fine. And again, we were responsive to you on all of the things that you've asked as it related to the board package. I think we should move forward here on resolution number 24 SLDC 971. I would like to entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
So move, Clark Hubbard.
Do I have a second?
Second, Gilbert. I'm sorry, I was having trouble getting off of mute.
No problem. Thank you. With the motion and the second, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gilbert,
Aye.
Director McBride,
Aye.
Director Sean Spencer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Kara Spencer,
Present.
Director Reed,
Aye.
and Chair Richardson.
Aye. With the majority present voting aye, the motion passes to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 971. The next item on the agenda is resolution number 24 SLDC 972, authorizing a contract for professional service for a portal data platform as part of the Digital Inclusion Action Plan. So with that, I'll pass it over to our Chief Technology Officer, Mr. Simon Wong.
Richardson, good morning, members of the board and SLDC staff. To the board members, this resolution is seeking your authorization to enter into a contract with Chameleon Integrated Services for the development of a portal/data platform. If you recall, back in July, I was before the board to ask approval on 3 contracts related to our digital equity efforts at SLDC, and all those 3 were approved. Unfortunately, the contract negotiations with the vendor for the portal/data platform were unsuccessful. And so we've reconvened the selection committee and decided to award the RFP, or decided to select the second vendor in terms of scoring for the RFP. And this is the resolution seeking us to enter into a contract with the second highest scoring vendor. And I'll entertain any questions if you need further details.
Any questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, I would like to entertain a motion to approve resolution number, Director Sean Spencer.
Thank you. I just wanted to get a little bit more detail on what the objectives of the program are. I know we've talked about this in the past, but is it enhanced, citywide Wi-Fi? Just maybe a little bit more details on, what we're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in 2023, we published the Digital Inclusion Plan, and that's on our website to address the digital divide and ensure that everybody that needs access and training to connect to the internet have those resources available. One of the recommendations out of the Digital Inclusion Plan was for the city/SLDC to serve as a convener for the various organizations that are working towards the same goals in the St. Louis region. So pursuant to that, we set up a Connect STL Coalition, which we've met quarterly for almost a whole year now. And they also meet monthly on Zoom. This website and data platform is geared towards advancing that work of the coalition. So when you have multiple different organizations coordinating to try and deliver services, sometimes there's overlap, sometimes there's less visibility into what different organizations are doing. So the portal allows the different organizations to register themselves, what services they provide, and also provide an asset map of resources so that constituents could go there to find out which institutions are offering training, for example, or where they might have access to Wi-Fi. And so that's what the main thrust of the portal is, to provide web/digital resource that can be used by both the providers and the recipients of digital inclusion services.
So this is basically like a kind of a phase one on, on the way to enhancing more internet access throughout the city.
Correct. And just as a additional point of information, there were two other contracts that were approved at the July meeting. One was for a community help desk, which provides help desk services in 4 of the city's recreation centers. That will be staffed by digital navigators so that residents can come in, and similar to what NEEC is doing in terms of allowing businesses to come in, this will be open to all residents who live around the recreation centers to come in and get assistance around whatever questions they might have around technology, right? And then the other RFP was for digital literacy education, is to hold various training classes across those same 4 recreation centers so that they can be geared towards either seniors or adults or people looking for jobs or healthcare or children after school activities. So this is one leg of the three-legged approvals that we received back in July. This is just switching from one vendor to another vendor at this point.
Thank you.
Seeing no more questions, I would like to entertain a motion to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 972.
So move,
So
Gilbert.
moved. Second, Sean Spencer.
Motion and a second. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gilbert,
Aye.
Director McBride,
Director McBride, are you there?
Aye.
Thank you.
Director Sean Spencer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Karen Spencer,
Present.
Director Reed,
Aye.
and Chair Richardson.
Aye. With the majority present voting aye, the motion is approved for resolution number 24 SLDC 972. Next on the agenda is our open director's report. As we promised during our last board meeting and during my conversation at the HUD's hearing a couple weeks ago, SLDC has agreed in light of some of the scrutiny and some of the feedback from the public around the North City Grant Program to pause the funding of that until we can ensure that there is full comfort and transparency around the overall program and process for how the scoring was conducted, how the criteria was created, and then also ensuring that any business that is brought forward for funding to the board of directors has been 100% verified, and we have the appropriate documentation to share with the board to give them comfort with the scoring of their applications, with the project being viable, but then also being able to recognize the additional compliance that is going to be required for every one of those applicants as they are being not just awarded funds, but also funded. And then the ongoing compliance reporting that will be happening between now and the end of 2026, which is again very diligent and focused, just similarly as aligned with our other CDBG funding programs. So SLDC tomorrow will officially launch our transparency portal. And so what we would like to do is to provide a quick presentation and overview to the SLDC Board of Directors for your feedback, for your conversations. Again, we are aiming to be solution oriented as we move forward in this approach, recognizing that there were some challenges with the initial process, but we have overcome those things and now really moving forward to ensure that there is confidence built back into this program. I know Mr. Lance Knuckles has spent the last 2 months having one-on-one debriefs with every business that requested to do so, and those will be performed until the end of October. Also, Ms. Lorna Alexander and the compliance team has went back and reviewed some of the viability assessments that have been conducted and will continue to do that work over the next couple of months to ensure that we are again bringing anything for funding that has been funding awards to be fully vetted. We have a history again of having conditional awards for other programs, but given the sensitive nature of this program, we think it's very important for us to bring back before this board any businesses for funding outside of any conditional awards. And so the transparency portal again is being utilized to strengthen public confidence in SLDC's process of evaluating these applications, and to remain as transparent as possible as funds are being dispersed to conditionally approved applicants. We ask people to go out to the transparency portal, ask questions, and then we will respond to those questions within the frequently asked questions in terms and definitions within the site. We know we continuously receive questions from the public, and we want to make sure that we're responsive, not just to that individual, but also to everyone, because if one person has the question, there may be others that need to have a response as well. And so what will be totally included within the transparency portal is the program applications and legislation, overview of every one of the programs and the evaluation criteria. We will also have portions of the conditionally approved grant recipient applications, ensuring that we redact any of the sensitive information for that respective business, but having those applications posted is important for us to be transparent. We also will have the scores of conditionally approved grant recipients, conflict of interest waivers for the SLDC Board of Directors, but then also, again, that frequently asked questions, terms, and definitions to ensure that as we are communicating to the public around, again, some of these very complex matters, that they will have that information at their fingertips and can be responsive to SLDC. We will also have an email address that will be made available for individuals to submit frequently asked questions for us to, again, be as responsive as possible and be as transparent as possible. I want to commend the SLDC staff for working diligently to scan almost 500 applications over the last month and do the redaction. That was a monumental task. And then also ensuring that we developed a very strong frequently asked question and term and definition document that can be shared with the public. So with that, I'll pass it over to Lance Knuckles, who will give a quick update on the program itself and some of the criteria for the programs, and not just, again, going through the criteria for how businesses are selected, but really digging deeper into some of the compliance matters that businesses are required to be responsive to, even after funding recommendations have been approved. So with that, I'll pass it over to Mr. Lance Knuckles, Senior Vice President of Strategic Growth.
Good morning, Board of Directors, staff, and community who's present. Lance Knuckles, Senior Vice President of Strategic Growth. As always, it's an honor and a privilege to engage this body to discuss and dialogue around the progress of work under the stewardship of SLDC. So in front of you, you have a document. I want to just provide you a broad overview of what will be on the transparency portal. And this is kind of a very direct notion of providing some transparency around each application or each business owner. What you have in front of you now is an application tracking document that has a unique identifier for each business along with their business name. That unique identifiers also allow for us, when we think about data privacy, to be able to move decisions in a way that allows us to keep some things private, internal, as it relates to how the process moves forward. As you move from left to right in this file, you will see there is information around providing a redacted part of the application. And so you can click on that link and be able to open the portion of the application with information that's being made available as it relates to transparency about the applicant and the application that was submitted. This is really important. Again, I think my director, CEO, mentioned around some portions will be redacted based upon either one, data privacy and or confidentiality. And we're hoping to ensure that we honor that as we move this work forward. So Sarah, I will allow you to scroll through. So each applicant that has been deemed conditionally awarded will have these things be made available. As you see, the last page is a signature page that includes a series of certifications. These certifications are really important for the directors to understand that as we've conducted this program, it does require business owners to provide factual information and be in agreement with the things they agreed to as a part of their certifications about the information within their application and how it was submitted. So Sarah, I'll ask you to take a step to the next document for me, please. And so we feel really good about the ability to have this information available for you. So if we want to go back to the spreadsheet, Sarah, really quick, I'm sorry. Just wanted to make a few more things really clear. Within this, I know as a part of our discussions about conditional awards, SLDC has been doing ongoing diligence throughout this entire process. And as we think about businesses and their headquarters, there's a location where that business does its primary work and communicates that address. There is also within the community enhancement or facade program the ability to actually do work at another site. And so in the case of Cardinal Home Healthcare, as an example, their business home headquarters is at 1101 North Sarah. However, they're looking to use the resources, if fully funded, to make enhancements to their office or location at 8525 Halls Ferry Road. These are some of the things that we've made sure that we've identified where there's opportunities to clarify. So when someone is looking for a business and where the funds are being allocated, this will allow us to be able to convey and communicate what is the benefactor or the address that's the benefactor of funds as we move forward. And again, as you move to the right, You will look at the funds that have been awarded to any business to date. As this body knows, we have funded smaller engagement opportunities with businesses from capacity building and some expansion and or stabilization. So this will be ongoing and allow us to track as each business is awarded funds. We'll be able to identify and track all funds that have been awarded to a specific business. We also have a column for the site visit, which is really important for the viability assessment around who did and has conducted that viability assessment, the date that assessment has been conducted, and then the status of that assessment, either one that is viable moving forward or that it was unsuccessful, that will then trigger all the additional due diligence around that. You will also see the award status, which would be all things that would come back to this body for approval prior to being funded. So I want to be really clear that we will be coming back to this body with due diligence as we had always planned prior to funding a business and moving resources from SLDC to those businesses through either an ACH transfer or even a check. But more specifically, the large scale community enhancement awards will be leveraging a dispersing agent and requiring businesses to provide documentation in tranches to ensure that all activity is moving forward and we have receipts and documentation prior to additional dollars moving forward. Then we also have the information about the clear CBI status. The CBI status, as you all know, is working with the collector of revenue and the business license office to ensure that folks are current. I do want to take a quick moment to address the opportunities that have come up around real estate taxes. As a part of the ongoing due diligence, before a business can engage with being funded in any way, shape, fashion, or form, as a part of the legal documents that I'll talk about a little later, there is a clause that if a business is behind on their real estate taxes, they are required to be current in order to move forward. So again, the due diligence process has been in place. We will continue to move that diligence process forward, but more importantly, bring that due diligence status back to this body prior to issuing any funds to any businesses. So again, as we move further to the right, you'll see whether or not a business has been funded for or has applied for stabilization, expansion, community need as a requirement if a business is currently not located in North St. Louis, but has site control and seek to bring a community need or a benefit to North St. Louis, which is a requirement to identify and meet a community need. And then the last column or set of columns are related to the expansion applications. And then you have a total amount of all the application selections for a business that they've attempted to apply for as a part of this program. So this will provide an overarching comprehensive view of just the status of how we're moving through due diligence and making sure that these totals are updated in real time as we get approval from this body to move things forward. And I know, Sarah, do we have the total at the bottom? Sarah, I can't recall if we have the total, but I think it's really important to understand that the number of applications that were submitted outweigh the amount of funds that were available. And so our ability to use an evaluation criteria is critical in order for us to be equitable to provide access to resources, understanding that all businesses in this competitive process would not be funded as we move forward. So that's one part of the transparency portal. And Sarah, I believe we're going to slide over to the program overviews. So as we think about the North St. Louis Small Business and Nonprofit Grant Program, there are a number of components that were designed with great intention to support businesses to move forward. This original program was designed to be a competitive program in its initial state. As we've engaged with the process, we also understood that it's extremely important to ensure that capacity building is a foundation for our small businesses in North St. Louis to find success, build tools and talent and resources to be able to move forward. So the one part of the capacity building is about the financial assessment. The financial assessment is really working with the business owner to allow them to create a series of balance sheet documents, profit and loss statement, income statements, to be able to allow them to have a set of foundational documents to track. As we know, not all of our businesses in North St. Louis have the capacity or access to things like QuickBooks or other platforms of that magnitude. So the ability to bring forward some training in Excel files to allow businesses to have those templates are really important. And so as it relates to the financial assessment, the due diligence is defined in front of you. We describe the component, program eligibility, how much funding is available there, and what is the due diligence process. And again, all businesses receiving funds through this program have to have a clear CBI and sign an agreement and meet all certifications and provide a budget in order for them to move forward. And each program also has reporting requirements at the end. Some of it is simple in the sense of the financial assessment. It is really just maintaining your receipts for all your funds that you received, but there is no programmatic reporting. But SLDC does reserve the right to inspect and do an audit of all expenditures that are eligible for the program. And so within this folder, we have an overview of each one of the capacity building components. The other capacity building component is the Training Academy. The Training Academy is a six session series. Again, there's a component description, defining eligibility, the due diligence, and again, the agreement, and also the compliance and reporting. Again, from a capacity standpoint, the capacity building simply requires on an ongoing reporting basis through 2026 to ensure that they keep all receipts for expenditures where they've leveraged ARPA funds to secure support for their business. And so we'll just run through these a little quick because they all have some of the same information in the same structure. But I want to make sure that you all understand that these tools are here for not only the directors and community to really understand each component, what is the diligence at a high level that's required, and then what is the ongoing compliance or reporting that exists there. So Sarah, we won't do a deep dive, but let's just run through each of them so the directors are aware that we do have the stabilization, operational expansion, and I will pause on operational expansion for a moment and really think through the reporting, Sarah. So again, the due diligence exists. As someone receives information or funding from this part of the program, they are required to maintain all receipts for eligible expenses and also maintain all payroll records related to employment of employees. Whereas this program is making decisions around the number of employees, and then they will be required to provide a semi-annual reporting of their employment activity and payroll through 9/30 of 2026. Then the other components go to the community enhancement, which includes both new construction and large-scale rehab, as well as facade. And so again, this defines the process there. There's an application completeness, and I'll spend a little more time here, whereas this is the larger component of the program. So I will engage with you all a little deeper here to have you understand the diligence that's moving forward within this program to provide continual confidence. And so the application is submitted, going through that process. There's budgets that are required. There's also the application criteria, as we'll go and do a deep dive on the application criteria here in a moment. There's a litany of required supportive documents that are there that are required, and then there's the agreements that come behind it. And so we also have conducted for all applicants a declaration exhibit that is about defining the program that they choose to participate in to ensure there's alignment between the documentation we gather with the program in which they're seeking to participate in. And so, Sarah, I don't know if you want to slide down a little further. And so this document continues to define the due diligence process all the way down through program due diligence, post-conditional award, and then all the way down through post-funding within the process. And so this is one I would encourage you all to spend time with It does provide an extremely detailed process. And the other portion I think is important for the directors and community to be aware of is that projects that are either one, receiving funds at $1 million or above, or their overall project is over $1 million, we are engaging the compliance team to enact the supportive compliance that's required for 70767, as well as 71094. And so we are working across departments to ensure that all forms of compliance are being met as it relates to the issuing of any funds in relationship to this program.
And Lance, real quickly,
Yes,
can
sir.
you speak to the purpose of the deeds and those other restrictions to ensure that if
Yeah,
entities
we're
do
going to
not
head to the legal
comply-
doc, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
okay, thank you.
Uh, there's a lot here, directors, and so I want to just give you all a guided tour to make sure you understand what's here and where some of the things that we've addressed or have been raised and how we solve for them. And so as a part of the due diligence, once we complete the entire due diligence and bring information back to the board, I will also go over a document for your support to understand if we're bringing the right level of documentation to you to consider. But Sarah, we're going to go to the legal docs just to keep us on track for our CEO. Each of the facade programs, or not facade, the community enhancement programs have a series of legal documents that are required to be completed and signed off on in order to move funding. That includes a beneficiary agreement. The beneficiary agreement is defining the relationship between the benefactor and that they are receiving grant funds through the American Rescue Plan Act. It defines the budget for how they would use the fund. It defines the funds. It also defines the relationship between SLDC and this business and the requirements that they are required to provide as we move forward. It will also include an attachment and exhibits like the dispersing agreement, and we'll talk about that a little more in a second. And so this is a template, and I use the term template because each business, based upon their project, may have information that's slightly different based upon the project scope and scale as they move forward. But this is a very comprehensive document. More specifically, is a document that has been garnered from the Community Development Administration to ensure that SLDC is in compliance with all federal rules and requirements as it relates to issuing ARPA funds to beneficiaries. So then, Sarah, we can move to the dispersing agreement. The dispersing agreement is an additional legal document that defines who will receive funds, how much funds they will receive, and how things will move forward from a disbursement standpoint. As I mentioned earlier, funds for community enhancement are not being issued directly to a business in relationship to their program or project. Funds will be dispersed through this dispersing agreement to a title company or a dispersing agent with instructions around how funds can be distributed, with a requirement of all expenditures to be approved by SLDC prior to being used or funded to the business as they move forward. And so this dispersing agreement also provides real clear guidance and instruction around who can receive dollars. And so all of our businesses, if they have a contractor or folks who will be paid, they will be named specifically in this agreement to ensure that we're providing funds to the dispersing agent, going to very specific people to do very specific work. And then based upon the investment in either a large scale project or a facade, any dollars that are above $25,000 or $20,000 must have a deed of trust and a LURA. And so we'll go to the deed of trust. The deed of trust provides an opportunity for us to address all issues and knowing that funds have been invested into a property, and that before moving forward, there's a requirement for all back taxes to be paid, back real estate taxes to be paid in relationship to that specific site. So we are, through the formal process of due diligence and using the 4 legal documents, are capturing all issues that relates to any outstanding debt that anyone might have in relationship to the specific site that will be the benefactor of ARPA funds as we move forward. And so we'll move to the last document, which is the LURA. And the LURA is the land use restriction agreement that again defines the terms and conditions about funds being allocated to a site and how those funds need to be allocated, and the requirements and restrictions of transparency and communication about that as this site moves into perpetuity. And so in this case, where the funds, there will be, I think these LURAs are in place for 15 to 20 years. I will make sure to define that explicitly in the transparency portal so community and also directors understand the length of compliance related to the LURA, so that can be pulled out and be clearly understood around how long these documents are in place. And so as it relates to due diligence process, there's detail, but Sarah, can we navigate to I'm gonna lose my mind, the community enhancement document that we want to bring back to the board? We can start here.
Vance, I don't think we have that template in the transparency portal.
We don't have it up
but-
yet. Okay.
Yeah, but I can pull, if you want to show it, I can pull it over from the other drive.
If you could pull it over, that would
Okay.
be tremendous, but I'll walk through this document that identifies some of the due diligence, because I do want directors to offer some feedback to ensure that I am bringing the right level of information back to them prior to us moving into legal documents. And so what you have in front of you, directors, is the due diligence checklist that is going through identifying all the legal documentation that's required from an operating business or nonprofit standpoint. We also have all the internal verifications. These things include all the documents that are required for any business to be active within the city of St. Louis or the state of Missouri. Having a business name, registered business license with the state of Missouri, and nonprofits all have the very similar list of things. We also have the internal verification. Again, we do the CBI clearance with the Collector of Revenue and the License Collector's Office. We do also engage with Community Development Administration to ensure there's no conflicts there. We have businesses registered with sam.gov. We also engage if a requirement for cultural resources or the planning department to be engaged and involved. And then we also verify geographic location and eligibility, COVID impact statement, and the viability assessment that continues to be conducted for businesses. I won't go into detail about all the next couple of sections because it's really the documents that a business has to require to provide to us to be in good standing in the process. But Sarah, I'm going to have you go back up a little bit, Sarah, because I do want to stop right there. We're good. Scroll down to the bottom of this page for me, Sarah. Thank you. So I do want to spend some time here as we talked about community needs. If a business is operating, I'm going to use the term in South St. Louis, but had planned to open a grocery store, I'm going to use the grocery store as an example, that they had a site in control in their stewardship in advance of the application deadline of 10/30 of 23. That business could then apply and be considered for possible participation in the grant program by meeting a community need component. Site control is very critical. That site control has to be identified through a deed of trust, purchase agreement, or anything of that nature that allows us to truly understand that that asset has been in their stewardship in advance of the application deadline of 10/30 of 23. As we then think about all the other documentation, we do again collect and engage with the license collector office through the legal documents to ensure that businesses are up to date on their real estate taxes. There's project plans that are gathered. We reiterate site control, whether a business owns that property or is a leaser. And if through the facade program, as an example, a business is attempting to do facade improvement and they are leasing the building, the property owner of that site would then be named and party to the beneficiary agreement, as they are the owner of the asset and would need to require permission for the grant awardee to be able to make enhancements to their asset. And then they would also be named in the deed of trust, delivering all the legal documents to ensure that both parties are held accountable for how funds are being allocated and used on that site. And again, site control or proof of site control can be done through a deed of trust, lease agreement, et cetera. We also gather information around project timelines. We look at bids and ensure that there are 3 bids for all the facade programs, projects to ensure that we are able to be compliant with CDA requirements. In some instances, we may have to approve if there's specialty things that have to happen, they may only get 2 bids, but we have actively engaged with our compliance team to engage our certified business owners to do some matchmaking to help accelerate the relationship building with these businesses and accessing the services that are required to secure bids. We also then go through their project budget. As you all know, that we have not provided conditional awards in the full amount of any request of any business that has applied for the community enhancement program. Therefore, they have to modify their project budget based upon the allocation of funds that we're bringing forward and then shape a project at the same site. I want to say that again. They have to modify their budget and bring forward a new project scope at the same site that can be completed by 9/30/26, and then build out that budget, sources and uses, and then any commitment of additional funds, we will verify that through a commitment letter or other forms of communication that they can be verified to ensure that those additional dollars are moving to the project. And again, as I mentioned, there has to be a modified budget based upon the conditional award amount, and then they have to secure a dispersing agent. The dispersing agent is an eligible expense within the ARPA program, so we're not putting a burden on the applicants in that case, but it is an eligible expense within their grant award if they are fully funded and awarded in the future. But more specifically, all projects would need to be required to have a certificate of occupancy at the time of completion and moving funding forward by 9/30/26. Post board approval, as you all as a body approves me and my team to move into the legal documents portion and get those things enhanced. Again, we're going through the beneficiary agreement that has exhibits, the disbursement schedule, the award amount, estimated total project, and then the beneficiary's declaration. Again, the land use, the LURA, the deed of trust, and the disbursement agreement, all those documents are completed in partnership with our legal team to ensure that those documents are completed appropriately and then routed for signature thereafter. Post-funding, there's project oversight both on the construction side as well as the financial side to ensure that, again, all funding requests and receipts and expenses are approved by SLDC and our internal team prior to additional funds being allocated to a business. And as I mentioned earlier, we also are doing the post-project compliance for projects that are $1 million or more and or their overall ARPA funding is $1 million or more. For projects that do not meet that $1 million threshold, we will be providing project management to ensure that those projects are moving forward expeditiously. However, they will not get the same rigor for those projects that trigger 70767. And so then ongoing through 12/31/26, Sarah, can you slide down to the bottom? Thank you so very much. We will track and monitor project expenses, any services delivered, and any other activity that was defined within their beneficiary agreement. That reporting is required to be conducted through 12/31/26. So Sarah, if you can make a switch pivot for me and kind of put up the other document, I would greatly appreciate it. And so directors, as we continue to move this work forward, I thought it prudent for us, as you all have requested us to come back to you prior to moving any resources. We've taken our due diligence process, condensed it down to what I believe is a 2-page document that might allow you all to have enough information to be able to understand what the project is and what we're doing as we move forward, and then ask any critical questions about the diligence that we've conducted to date prior to moving forward. And so what you have in front of you now, directors, is what we're calling the SLDC board project overview. This would include just the information about a business, where they're located. And I want to be really clear that when we talk about the business address, that business address would be the headquarters of the business where they conduct business. And then a little further down, when we talk about the address of the project site, that might be different than the business address or their headquarters. So really want to draw your attention to that just so you understand there may be different addresses based upon the site that will be the benefactor of ARPA funds. So this document, we will complete the business address, which program they're identified in, if there's applicable project name, include their score, both on the economic justice alignment filter, which is the 100-point evaluation that's based upon geographic location of the business, the presence of their budget, and the presence of their application, as well as their score for the economic justice impact evaluation, which is a 40-point evaluation, which is subjective based upon capacity, financial feasibility, alignment of goals, and impact of the project in community. And then again, we would identify the overall project budget, the requested amount, and then the amount of the conditional award, and then clearly identify any additional funds that are coming to this project for your consideration and awareness. Sorry, light one on. So then in the project overview, this section you see in front of you now, just 3 simple questions. These are the types of things we would bring back in a project overview. What type of business activities are happening within the business or the site, meaning what services they provide? How will ARPA funds be used to support the business activity? And then what are the community impacts of the project? And so if there are other things that this board would love to see in this overview, I welcome some guidance from you all about the things you would love to see more, but those are just kind of some overviews of the type of documentation or narrative that we would bring in that section. We would also then identify with these projects where there are alignment with economic justice action plan goals, what score they had on the economic justice index as it relates to the EGI 1 through 4. Are they aligned with the demonstration area? Is this project aligned with the priority corridor as part of the original legislation? To give us a sense of understanding the placement and where these projects are having impact across our city, and also provide you all some additional information about the project without attempting to bring an entire application and a file in front of this body. And so, Sarah, if you slide to the second page, this is an open area that we would provide all of the due diligence notes that we believe not only one are important, but that are allowing us to convey to this body and the community around the due diligence that has been taking place. And so the board of directors, you would receive a series of bullets identifying any challenges that needed to be addressed or the steps and processes that have been conducted to ensure we've met all the rigor and gathered all appropriate documentation to move this project in front of you to be able to get your support to continue to move forward. Sarah, if you can scroll down for me, thank you. As this moves forward, there will be a final recommendation from my team and myself around how we would want to move forward and provide supportive documentation. Either one, affirming the conditional award that the body had supported previously, or rescinding that conditional award because through the due diligence process, some measure or metric was not able to be met by the business owner, and we would provide a rationale for that. And then that business, any allocated funds to a business that we would rescind a conditional award to, those dollars would be reallocated kind of back into the program and would allow us to then engage additional sets of businesses who scored at the appropriate thresholds to be considered for funding. Then obviously we have a date, who actually completed it, and then be able to provide this narrative to this body prior to moving any resources or funds. So I know that was a lot, but I think it's really important for us to just provide you some guidance and perspective on the level of diligence that has been in place, and that will continue to do this work and bring information back in front of you as a body before we make final decisions. And so, Neil, I think we've covered all the due diligence there, but I will pause and under your guidance and direction, take any questions and or provide any deeper in guidance on what we have on the transparency portal.
Any questions for Mr. Knuckles? Director Sean Spencer, I think I seen your hand maybe pop up, and then Alderwoman Kara Spencer. Director Spencer, you're on mute if you're talking.
Thank you. VP Knuckles, thank you for that deep dive, and thank you for all the efforts that you put into improving the transparency on individual requests for funding. You know, as somebody who's used federal funding for construction projects, I know, you know, how difficult and complicated this is going to be. And I understand, you know, we want to put people in a position for success. So I'm really glad that you were talking about that kind of program or the project management. I think the hand holding and being there to answer the questions and to get to a point where the recipients are going to be successful is where we want to be. So that sort of, you know, background is really helpful to me. Ultimately, it's going to be about the execution, and it's going to be about the outputs and the outcomes. And what you've explained towards the latter part of your presentation is that's the information that we're going to be collecting, and that's the information we're going to be reporting back to the community. So I really, I'm hopeful that this is successful, but I also want to add a caveat that we need to really pay attention to the process and to the award recipients and their ability to manage this type of funding, because there are so many requirements, and we don't want to get too far down the line where that project doesn't become potentially financially and, you know, just feasible in general, so that money can go other places if we need to. So just wanted to add that, and good luck.
Yeah, Director Spencer, thank you for that. We are also making sure that we implement some timeframes around getting documentation in. To that very point, Director, that if folks can't capture the documents within a reasonable time frame, which will more than likely be 30 days, because we have met in an initial one-on-one with all the conditional awardees for community enhancement and begun the due diligence process. And so post this conversation and your support in approving kind of the structure that you want to have come back to you, we will then execute and communicate to all these conditional awardees around the timing and requirements that are required in order for them to maintain that conditional award status and to continue to move through the process. So with that, I'll yield the floor to Director Spencer.
I just wanted to make one more comment. I think, Lance, because just on that point, Lance, you mentioned being able to ensure that we provide full documentation to the board in a way that you all are able to make informed decisions prior to funding, moving from conditional award to funding approval from this board. I know even Director Gilbert mentioned, you know, the list of the businesses it was good to have a list, but she wanted more descriptive, right? More description on every project. So being able to have that description and then getting formal approval from the board for those projects, those larger scale projects are important. And then ensuring that on operational expansion, we have the right backup and verification on those businesses above, again, at $25,000 and above. So we look forward to moving those forward as well. So Alderwoman Kara Spencer, I want to recognize your hand, and then I know it's 9:30, but I also want to make sure I recognize Director McBride too. So Alderwoman Kara Spencer.
Thank you, Neil. My first question is, who is actually doing the vetting of the businesses? I know when the Board of Aldermen approved and allocated this $37 million to CDA to then pass through to SLDC, we allocated $3.7 million to administer the program. How much of that $3.7 million is going to SLDC staffing, to consultants? What are their exact roles? I see Candid here. It's my understanding that Candid received $300,000 of that funding. Is that for this purpose? Is that true? What is their role here? Who is actually doing the vetting? And can we see a breakdown of whose role and responsibility where the buck stops between the consultants and SLDC?
Mr. Richardson, you want me to respond to that first?
Yes, sure. You can start, Lance. Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Kara Spencer, thank you for the question. As it relates to the day-to-day due diligence in relationship to the Community Enhancement Award specifically, that is under the stewardship of myself and 3 of my colleagues who work for me, my business strategist, my housing strategist, and my data analysts are working diligently to do that work. We work in partnership with our VP of Compliance and her compliance team, which I believe is a team of 4 people that also are actively engaged in the due diligence and moving things forward. Any other consultants are not involved in the evaluation and or vetting of any business in this program. I will speak very directly to Grow America. Grow America is not compensated for providing evaluation, recommendations, or guidance in any way, shape, fashion, or form about potential funding verification or recommendations related to this program. Grow America provides a financial assessment, again, which is about ensuring that businesses know their position at a moment in time, and then providing a set of financial documents to ensure they're able to map and track their expenditures and their growth over time, as well as providing the training academy, which again is the 6-session series that moves work forward for those people to understand those training and education components. All compliance and vetting of conditional awardees is done and conducted by SLDC staff, more specifically, myself as the Senior Vice President of Strategic Growth and my strategist team in partnership with our VP of Compliance and her team.
As a part of the transparency portal or the transparency website, I would like to see the $3.7 million broken down into where it's being spent, if it's being allocated to SLDC and their staff, the consultants, Candid. It was my understanding that all the ARPA dollars were staying in the city of St. Louis. If we're actually, contracting out Candid out of Kansas City, that there needs to be some transparency in that and how that $3.7 million is being allocated. But I do appreciate knowing that SLDC staff is the entity that is where the buck stops with regards to the vetting. Is there an expectation that the SLDC board will be approving grants? I am an elected official. We are all appointed here. I want to say on the front end, I have a serious level of discomfort when it comes to the idea or the concept or even the implication that we as board members will be in a position of having to approve grants. I think that is something that should be done by staff, that should be done by professional capacity. I think it's important to disclose whether or not applicants are required to disclose conflicts of interest. There are 700 applications here. There is no way any of us on the board could understand if our third cousin or second neighbor down, any kind of relationship has applied for one of these grants. And it is important that we do not have conflicts. And I do have a serious level of discomfort there. So I want to know if we are expected as board members to be have an official role in vetting or approving these grants.
Mr. Richardson, would you like?
Yeah, so I can start first. Alderwoman Spencer, we can definitely add that budget breakdown for the administrative expenses of that $3.7 million to the portal. That's something that we can definitely do. If you all have other recommendations for things to be added to the transparency portal, please advise us on what you would like to see, and we can work on getting those things uploaded in a reasonable period of time. But then also as it relates to the approval from the board of directors. So for any funding above $20,000 to any business, the SLDC board of directors have to provide a formal approval for SLDC to enter into an agreement. And so we will provide the information and provide recommendations to the board based on our evaluation criteria, which again is laid out in the transparency portal, going through the substantial award committee, which is made up of members of representatives of E&A, and then also making our final recommendation to the SLDC board of directors for their consideration. Our goal is not for you all to do the vetting. Our goal is to ensure that we share, again, the evaluation criteria, how each project is scored, how we came to the determination. But in order for SLDC and our staff to actually enter into those agreements, we are binded by our governing bylaws and requirements to ensure that any agreement, any funding above $20,000 to a individual entity needs the final sign off from the board of directors for us to enter into that funding agreement. So we are doing the vetting, we are providing the recommendations, but the board has to authorize specifically the executive director, myself, to enter into those agreements with those businesses. I hope that answers your question, Alderwoman Spencer.
It does. It would be helpful. I think it is you're soliciting input and requests. I think it would be helpful to include the principles of each of these organizations, as part of that transparency. So those of us who are on this board can understand who's involved in those. Again, many of us have large families or, large networks of folks with whom we're connected. And in order to understand any of those connections and for the public to understand those as well, I think it needs to be disclosed. I'd also appreciate the posting of the SLDC bylaws, which you just referenced as a part of that as well. It's my understanding.
I'm sorry to cut you off. We have a procurement policy, and we can definitely share that. And that has been, may have been previous to you joining the board of directors, Alderwoman Kara Spencer. So we will ensure that that resolution that actually keeps us under that funding limit is shared on the transparency portal as well to ensure that we have that noted. But one thing I did want to mention directly about the conflicts of interest, Lance, do you want to speak to the application? And that will be shared as part of the transparency portal. Every applicant had to attest to any relationships they had with elected officials in those applications. So Lance, do you want to speak to that directly?
Yes, sir. So I'll address a couple of things, Alderman Kara Spencer, and also respond to my CEO. As it relates to conflicts within the stated certifications within the application, there are items within that identify if there's relationship. That is laid out in the application. If you go to the certifications, you can see that. And so some of the requirements are, again, on the business owner to provide some of that information as a part of the process. I will say that I have my team asking those questions in a deeper perspective as we're now doing the one-on-one due diligence with those businesses. So we will be attempting to gather any relationship information that can help us inform this body about project partners and or principals working on the project as they move forward and bring them back to this body for support. I would also like to say that I want to go back to a comment that was made earlier. I mentioned about property taxes or real estate taxes. It is a requirement only for those who are participating in the new construction and or facade, and there's a real estate transaction involved. That is not a requirement that will be sought after for the expansion, the stabilization, or any of the other capacity building programs. I just want to make sure to keep that notion of real estate taxes being current on the site is limited to those who are applying for the community enhancement and they're receiving dollars to make improvements to a real estate asset. Right. Go ahead, Mr. Richardson.
No, go ahead.
And so the other part is I just want to really speak to that. Right now, we are not moving any funding until we engage with you all today. And then we will look to start bringing the diligence back to this body in December for you all to have all the appropriate information to provide, as Mr. Richardson said, about that final approval for him to enter into agreements. We are on track to bring that information back to this body in the December board meeting. But I'll yield the floor to Mr. Richardson.
So I would say there are going to be some recommendations from the operational expansion that will come before this board next month above $25,000 as promised, just to ensure that we are continuing to support those businesses on the operational expansion, and we will definitely provide an overview of those businesses too. Also, to your other point, Alderwoman Kara Spencer, within the transparency portal, we have uploaded the conflict of interest waivers for all of the board of directors, including the elected officials. As you are aware, and also Alderwoman Shameen Clark-Hubbard, we sent the letter over to both elected officials that are on the SLDC board of directors to ensure that we clear up any appearances of impropriety. We have uploaded those letters and the responses to those letters on the transparency portal as well. That will be, again, live tomorrow. So we plan to, again, make sure that not only the conflicts of waivers, but also any appearances of impropriety or mitigated as elected officials, as you mentioned, Alderwoman Kara Spencer. So thank you for your comments.
Yeah, I think it also applies to all board members, not just the elected officials. These are all appointed members. I don't see why there would be any difference there, but I understand as well that that there's an internal investigation going on. I'd like you to speak a little bit about that, specifically what attorneys are working on behalf of SLDC. Is it David Meyer still involved? I'm a little bit concerned about, or about who's representing SLDC and in what capacity as far as.
So it was really about us, again, removing any appearance of impropriety. And again, it was the guidance of the city councilor's office provides that support to SLDC, ensuring that, again, part of that was sending out those letters to the elected officials to ensure that we have direct feedback around any conflicts apparent or appearances of impropriety, and that's why that information was shared. So again, it's the internal city council's office that has been providing us with that support to ensure that there is no conflict of interest and those things were addressed. I will also say that the applicant, just as though, as you mentioned, you don't know if any of the applicants have any relationship to you directly. Also, SLDC directors and other staff also are not aware. And so that's why we had that attestation within the application itself, and really had the applicant put the onus on the applicant, just as any other publicly funded program does, to ensure that the applicant should be able to share any appearance of conflicts or any relationship to elected officials within their application. And that's part of the attestation of the application itself, and that has been shared publicly. So I hope that responds to your question, Alderwoman Kara Spencer. I'm not sure what exactly you're asking.
Well, two things. I mean, we all are, the voting members here include members that are not just elected officials. So conflicts extend beyond just the two elected officials.
And that's why the conflict of interest forms for all board of directors are published.
So, and I would assume that that letter went out to every member of the board and not just the two elected officials, considering the potential for conflicts across all members of the board of directors here. But my question really was about SLDC. You mentioned that the city councilor is the acting attorney here. The city councilor, her client is the city. Why are we not using why is SLDC not using SLDC attorneys? David Meyer, for example, and why is, excuse me, and why is the city's attorney acting on behalf of an organization that is not directly part of the city? You mentioned earlier, and we all know that SLDC is not a department of the city of St. Louis. Sheena Hamilton, her client, is the city of St. Louis. So what is that relationship? And are we contracted? Is this SLDC paying for those services? Why is Sheena Hamilton, our city attorney, acting on this? And if you could add some information on the transparency portal related to the internal investigation so the public can be aware of that. As a board member, I was not aware of that until I received that letter. And so I think there needs to be some transparency as it relates to the internal investigation.
So SLDC has always contracted the city councilor's office for legal services and legal support. We pay for that staff. We have an intergovernmental agreement between SLDC and the city of St. Louis to procure those services. Sheena Hamilton and the city councilor's office provides that. David Meyer is an employee of the city councilor's office. He's actually transitioned to provide some legal service support to the airport. But SLDC is working with James Morrow, as well as Olivia Finley and others from the city council's office that we pay for out of our SLDC operational budget to utilize their legal support. And that has been the normal process for SLDC since I don't know when it initially started, but I know it's over 20 years. The SLDC has utilized the city council office for legal support, and it's not just for the ongoing operations, it's also for real estate transactions and otherwise. That's just been the normal practice of how SLDC has functioned in partnership with the city of St. Louis. So this has been going on for several administrations.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that clarification, Neil. The last sets of questions are just sort of on the timeline and kind of what we're expecting here. I think as part of the transparency, it'd be helpful to add some information about when businesses can start to expect to have some disbursements, how much disbursements have already been made at this time, and how many of the businesses have been we had a tranche that were out, then a whole reconsideration and another reconsideration. The levels of reconsideration are confusing, and I think that there needs to be some transparency about how many businesses have been reconsidered, et cetera, et cetera. And
Yeah.
I want to just say for the record, I think paying real estate taxes, should be a consideration for more than just the expansion grants. I mean, these are, I'm a little bit concerned that we're not making sure that all businesses are compliant across the board, or that there's some special consideration for that.
Okay, understood. So we have the funding amounts published. We will have those. We've always had those published of how much has been funded to date. We will be able to share a timeline more directly. We're hopeful that the businesses at $25,000 and below, we can start the disbursement process immediately. Following this meeting, we just wanted to make sure that we had this level of conversation with the board in a transparent manner. And then in November, we will be bringing those above $25,000 with the required documentation to confirm that the businesses have the number of employees that they attested to by reviewing their 2023 tax returns. So that's more information and diligence that we will be conducting as well before bringing those above $25,000 to this board in November. And then, as Mr. Knuckles stated, in December, we will have those larger scale projects after we've been able to confirm their budget, they're able to complete the project before September 30th, 2026, that they have the bid process underway, and that they're able to meet all of the qualifications and requirements that Lance laid out in the presentation. Once we have those things verified, we will bring that before the board in December for those larger scale projects. But we will definitely are willing to outline that. I want to make sure that, again, we try to get through this meeting on time here. But if you have any other questions or comments around information that you would like to see on the transparency portal, our goal is to publish the first version of that tomorrow. And then if you have additional information that you want to be made available in that transparency portal, we will have an email address. But always, directors, if you have specific things, we can make those accommodations as well. I would ask that, we've had to bring in staff working overtime over the weekends to scan all of these documents in. Many of the applications, for example, were paper applications. So we had to go through the redaction of sensitive documents and getting that information updated. And that's above and beyond their normal day-to-day responsibilities. So again, I ask, as we are working really hard to service the city of St. Louis through our normal operations, but also be responsive, that the public has patience with us, but we are working very hard to be as transparent as we possibly can throughout this process.
Thanks, Neil. Can I just add one little last thing? The conflict
Yeah,
should
please.
also extend not just to the board members, but also staff. So I just want to make sure that piece
I'm
is
sorry,
also
say that one more time. I'm sorry.
that all the the conflicts
Yes.
disclosure. So the communication that was going through the elected officials, it's my understanding, should happen across the board for board members as well as for staffing of SLDC. I just want to make sure that we're looking at conflicts across the
Yeah, and we have those conflict of interest. So I appreciate it, Alderwoman Spencer. So Mr. Knuckles, did you have any last comments before we?
Yeah, I wanted to do a couple of things, Alderwoman Spencer. Two things. All staff do have a conflict of interest, and the template of that conflict of interest is on the transparency portal. Any staff that were involved in the phase 2 evaluation of the Community Enhancement Awards, they also have a separate conflict of interest form specifically because they were reviewing those applications. So I want to just give you that confidence that those things are put in place. As it relates to the reconsideration for community enhancement, that reconsideration is a byproduct of the one-on-one meetings, application debriefs meetings that I have been conducting since mid-August. I am running those sessions through the end of October, and then we'll begin the overall comprehensive reevaluation and scoring of any of those applications that need to be scored or modified in any way, shape, fashion, or form and then move those as a collective body to really understand how we're moving. So that is the plan. We can provide that timing on the transparency portal, that we will conduct the reconsideration or evaluation in phase 2 for any business that was reconsidered and had their score modified as it relates to their phase 1 score. So we are working diligently to make that work happen. And as a senior vice president, I felt it was important for me to host all of those sessions with businesses to ensure they got definitive and final answers that were void of any uncertainty. Whereas I am the staff person who's been staffed to be a steward of this program from its beginning into its completion. So we are working diligently to make that happen.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, so let's move on to the next item, which is the new market tax credit allocation. SLDC, if many of you are not aware, is the top awardee for new market tax credit allocation for municipality in the entire country. This is an extremely competitive process to receive these awards, and the $25 million in new market tax credit allocation is critically important to support large-scale development projects in low to moderate income communities with a focus on driving job growth. So most of these projects, because of the nature of the program, or $5 million and above, we've also have been able to provide support for housing development projects, as well as some of our community businesses through our small business loan fund through the new market tax credit program. So this has been a great way for us to provide and continue to drive economic growth. I believe we're almost at the $600 million mark over the last, since 2005 through the program. And so I just want to give kudos to our Senior Vice President of New Market Tax Credits, Mr. Bill Seddon, for his hard work of spearheading this phenomenal program. And this is also a way that SLDC is able to support and sustain their operations through ongoing asset management fees. Almost 1/3 of our budget is a result of us managing this program through the administration itself. And so again, these are funds that are not coming from any of the city coffers. This is coming directly from the administration and asset management of these programs. So again, really appreciate the support and leadership of Mr. Bill Seddon. Also, we've been awarded $2.5 million through the EPA to support with our environmental justice efforts, cleanup on brownfield sites, as well as other remediation on our development projects. So I want to give a special, again, shout out and kudos to Mr. Peter Phillips. He led the application process and done a tremendous job of ensuring that SLDC put in a competitive application and bringing resources to continuously drive economic growth in the city of St. Louis forward. We also, September and October was a busy month, was awarded the NCAA Division I Wrestling Championship. So that was also another partnership that we've been able to continue with the Sports Commission. As you all may recall, several months ago, this board of directors approved for SLDC to provide a backstop of about $500,000 to support the attraction of large-scale sporting events and entertainment events to downtown St. Louis. And this is, again, one of those huge wins for our city. We're not sure if we want to need to tap into those funds for the purpose of this program, but we expect over $2 to $3 million of direct impact immediately from this program for our local economy. And so that's in addition to the tickets and the other events. We're also thinking about the hotels and the restaurants that would be frequented as a result of bringing this event to downtown St. Louis. So that's another big win for the city. And I also want to thank the board of directors and elected officials that are on the call today that were able to attend the 2024 Mayor's Business Luncheon Ready to Build. So it was really an exciting moment to be able to celebrate our business community and also be able to highlight a lot of the progress that we've been able to make as SLDC and the city of St. Louis and with Mayor Jones um, over the last 4 years almost now, and now working to the future of how we're going to help rebuild the city of St. Louis. So really thankful for the participation and support of the board of directors on making all of the things possible that we were able to highlight at the business luncheon, and be able to see a lot of these businesses smiling faces and really be appreciated. I also want to give a special recognition to the Northside Economic Empowerment Center. I believe it was 20 businesses that have received support, whether it's through the certification process, through technical assistance, capacity building, or through our plan room that we recognized at the event. And they could not speak more highly about the work and the support staff at the Northside Economic Empowerment Center. And they were really appreciative to have people on the ground in their community that's providing them with support every day. So again, I just want to thank the board of directors. I want to thank the staff for putting on an amazing event. Ms. Donna Campbell, since the inception of this event, has done a great job of helping manage and administer the program and the event, as well as my Issa Whitlock and our Chief Operating Officer, Stephanie Greasy. This was our first one, but it was an excellent event. So I just want to give, again, a special kudos out to everybody and very thankful for their support. And with that, we'll close out the meeting. Our next regular scheduled board meeting is November 21st. 2024. I look forward to seeing you all there. I am going to send out a special welcome to any board member that would like to be in person. I would like to have as many board members as possible to come in person to really start to have some of these conversations in person and start to have these discussions. We will continue to have, the Zoom available for the public to attend as well. But we look forward to having everyone in the boardroom on Thursday, November 21st, 2024, if you're able to attend. And I appreciate and look forward to it. I want to recognize Alderwoman Shameen Clark-Hubbard's hand, and then any last comments before we adjourn.
Thank you so much, Director Richards, and to my fellow board members. I just want to take a very brief moment. I know it's been a long meeting, but I would be remiss because I said I was going to do this here in a environment, in a space that I know we are empowering businesses in development and their interactions and collaborations with us here in the city. I wanted to uplift that today is Purple Thursday. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This touches many of us, some that we don't know because of the silence that's associated with domestic violence. But today, again, is Purple Thursday, and the entities, there are so many entities that have turned their businesses purple, their homes with light bulbs purple. We wear purple. And again, this ignites, uplifts, and starts the conversation for us to be able to shatter the silence and make sure our survivors know that we see them, we hear them, and then they can help and reach back and get another survivor. I mean, the Civil Courts building, City Park, Keener Plaza, the zoo, our fire departments, police departments, the St. Louis Wheel. Purina is a big sponsor because pets experience domestic violence when their owners are experiencing domestic violence. The Stifle Theater, Jack C. Taylor Visitor Center, and the Missouri Botanical Gardens, the Planetarium for the St. Louis Science Center, the Muni, the APA Adoption Center. There are many cities and municipalities that have gone purple. Our lights down here in downtown have gone purple. So if you here have a connection or you have an entity that has the ability to change their lights purple, if you can ask them to change their lights purple today, again, in honor of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, Purple Thursday. And then if you want to send it to me so that I can make sure they're highlighted and we can have them join in this effort. Thank you so much for letting me take the time, Director Richardson.
Oh yeah, thank you, Alderwoman Clark-Hubbard, and your continuous advocacy as well. Any other last comments? It's 10 a.m. Okay, hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, Gilbert.
Second,
A
Clark
mo-
Hubbard.
Motion and a second. With that, the meeting has been adjourned. Thank you all for your time. I hope to see you all in person next month. Thank you.